Hello. After days of violence in Ukraine that's led to at least 77 people being killed, the president has now announced early elections. Viktor Yanukovich has also promised to create a unity government, but it's not certain if this will be enough to calm the anti-government protesters. Opposition politicians will discuss the proposals with demonstrators, and they're still demanding that he resign immediately. Well, earlier, fighting broke out in the Ukrainian parliament. These scuffles erupted after the speaker delayed a possible resolution demanding the powers of Yanukovych be reduced. And take a look at Independence Square in Kiev right now. That is the scene. There have been reports that some policemen have defected to the opposition and have now joined that protest movement that you're looking at right now. Al Jazeera's Andrew Simmons is joining us live from Kiev. Andrew, to tell us if everyone is on board with the news of this possible deal.
Well, the deal should have been signed and delivered 3 hours ago. That didn't happen. The President Yanukovych has said quite clearly that he will have early presidential elections. No specified date for that, but we think it's likely to be before December, that there will be a new constitution reverting back to 2004, which will lessen his powers. But the opposition leaders have to get the backing of these people. There's so many crowding this square who've suffered so much with so many deaths over a period of time. Nothing seemed like it in a European capital for years. So right now we're expecting a decision. We understand that the opposition leaders have travelled back to the presidential administration offices, so there could be a deal on the table very soon. Barnaby Phillips reports on the mood right now.
The president has announced a compromise, but selling it to these people will be tough. They talk of revolution, and this week, they say, dozens of martyrs have died for their cause. On the barricades around Independence Square, we met Ivan, a protester, but perhaps rebel might be a better word. He's ready to die, he says, if that's what it takes for the president to go.
My children wanted to come here with me. I said I would go alone, but I told them to follow me here if I don't come back home. The eldest son must be first.
So new barricades are going up and the existing defences are being built ever more higher, ever more elaborate. That is the result of this week's killings. And convincing people to take down these defences is going to be an incredibly difficult task for the Ukrainian government and opposition leaders.
The politicians can't even control their contempt for each other. More brawls in Parliament as the Speaker tried to delay a debate on changes to the Constitution. If the President is the villain in the square, these are the latest heroes. Policemen from the western city of Lviv. They've joined the protest. They say they want to work for a real police force, not a Soviet-type militia. A sign of cracks in the Ukrainian state, but also in the very fabric of the country.
How are we supposed to look on if they're shooting at a peaceful population? How are we supposed to look on calmly when we gave our vows to protect the Ukrainian people and not some bunch of oligarchs?
Lydia has come to mourn the dead. She doesn't want to talk about politics after so much bloodshed. But if Ukraine is to pull back from the brink, everyone will have to accept a messy political deal. Barnaby Phillips, Al Jazeera, Kiev.
Andrew, from what we've heard today, there doesn't seem to be anything about Yanukovych leaving, which is one of the key demands of the protesters. So what kind of shape will this deal take?
Very difficult to hear your question, but I think you're asking me about what this political deal might amount to. Well, it will effectively put the Constitution back to where it was in 2004, which will reduce the powers of the president. It will then also morph into discussion about an evolved, different constitution, and then there will be presidential elections. But as Barnaby was pointing out, the mood is so different now. This isn't just a political movement. It's effectively a revolution after so many deaths, and the mood here so insistent that change has to happen right away. It's hard to gauge how things will pan out right now, because there is this demand not just for the president to have reduced powers, but to basically face justice for what people consider to be crimes committed against their fellow citizens here on the streets of the capital. So a very fraught situation, regardless of which way you read the political forces right now.
Okay, Andrew, thank you. Andrew Simmons reporting for us from Kiev. While the violence against the government, as you know, has spread beyond Kiev. Al Jazeera's David Chater is joining us live from the western city of Lviv, the scene of violence there as well. David, what's happening where you are, and has the news filtered that there is a deal?
Yes, I want to pick up on Andrew's point there. I was getting some reaction from so-called self-defense forces here, which are now patrolling the streets of the city. No policemen around. All security services have been withdrawn. The city is an open rebellion. Now, I asked a young member of those self-defense forces outside a burnt-out police station what he thought. And he said to me that I don't see the point of any negotiations or truce. Too much blood has been spilled. I want to see them all at the international court. They should get the death penalty. Now, at the moment, that is a pretty isolated, radical sentiment, but I think it's taking some roots here deep inside the self-defense forces. They want to see justice, as Andrew Simmons was saying in Kiev. They want to see justice because so many of the people who were killed or injured in the Maidan Square in Kiev were actually people who came from this city. The people who lived were in the vanguard of the protests, and many injured have been coming back here. They're being treated in local hospitals. There really is a great backwash of anger here in Lviv.
David, you're describing the city in Lviv as an open rebellion. You're telling us that you're speaking to self-defense forces. So what are they saying they're going to do next?
Well, I was called the regional council, which is now in the hands of what they call the People's Council. And the leader of that council was holding a meeting inside. He allowed me to film inside. And what he was doing was all the officials in the bureaucracy of the city are now reporting to him. And we even found the only policeman on the streets of Lviv outside, and that's the police chief. Now, he wasn't in uniform. We did get to him, but he'd just been to see the People's Council as well. So they are effectively ruling this city, and there does seem no way that the police can go back onto the streets or back into their stations without the approval of the People's Council. But they are sending teams from the protesters into the police stations. They ransacked here, stealing something like 500 handguns to actually repair them and hand them back to the police. So it seems like there is a government here already completely separate to President Yanukovych and in no mood for any compromises.
Okay, David, thank you for that update. David Chater reporting on the situation in Lviv in Ukraine.